There was once a production company that was bigger than Paramount, bigger than Universal, even bigger than Disney. This company was so big that it came out of the Great Depression with a profit. They were so ahead of the competition that Variety called it generally regarded as being the film industry's equivalent of General Motors and US Steel. The company? MGM. But in 1942, Joanne Crawford called the studio box office poison, which caused MGM to pull her contract. Soon after, they would cut ties with 4 of their highest paid talent. How could films General Motors become box office poison so quickly? In short, they oversaturated the market. Their production goals during the 1930s was to release 1 movie every week, though they didn't quite hit that mark, releasing 1 movie about every 9 days. That still averaged out to 40 movies a year. To put that in perspective, Disney only releases about 8 movies a year. To make matters worse, production was stifled by a committee of producers, otherwise known as the College of Cardinals. This hurricane of bureaucracy slowed down production to about 25 films a year. MGM knew that in order to keep profits high, they needed safe material to adapt their films off of as easily as possible. Do you hear that? The redcoats are coming. At this time during the 40s, it became incredibly popular to adapt British films into Hollywood blockbusters. Smelling success in the 1938 British play, MGM decided to buy the rights of Gaslight so they could make the very first film adaptation. What? The 1940 adaptation by Thornhill Dickinson? No, that never existed. Yes, it did. You see, MGM didn't just want to buy the rights to make the American adaptation, they wanted to make the film. Included in their contract was a clause to destroy all copies of Thornhill Dickinson's Gaslight adaptation, including the negative. MGM wanted to gaslight the public into believing the British film never existed. If it wasn't for Thornhill and his editor secretly keeping one of the versions to themselves, the film would have just been lost to time. Fortunately, once MGM's rights expired, Thornhill was able to come clean, with his version being played in the National Film Theater on his 80th birthday. Now, there are even Blu-ray copies of his film. Even still, MGM's adaptation is hailed as incredible, reaching #1 on IMDb's British to American adapted films list. Its higher production budget allowed for the set design, acting, and quality to seem much more polished than any other adaptation put to film. It was also unique, as American adaptations go, with the setting of the film staying in London. It was led by a French man and a Swedish woman and directed by a British man. Usually, American adaptations featured American talent. Gaslight went on to make $4.6 million at the box office and was admitted into the Library of Congress in 2019 for historical significance. In the film, Paula Ahlquist, played by Ingrid Bergman, returns to the home her aunt was murdered in 10 years ago with her husband Gregory, played by Charles Boyer. Paula starts to notice strange things happening around the house. Photos start to disappear, she hears footsteps on the roof, and the gas lights keep dimming without anybody touching it. Gregory says she's going crazy, but is she? Or is Gregory just trying to convince her she is?
Hey, I'm Sean. Today we're going to be doing a quick breakdown of the 1944 film Gaslight by George Cukor. I have about 4 years of experience with lighting and videography, so we're going to be doing a technical breakdown. We're just going to jump right in here. One thing we're going to notice right off the bat is his use of really high contrast or hard lighting in all of his scenes. Basically what that means is that the shadow on either side of their face, like compared to mine right here, so it's kind of light on one side, dark on the other, it's a little bit softer. In this whole film, it's usually a really hard line and the shadows and lights are really intense, like we can see right there. So this actually comes back from, or originates from, German expressionist filmmaking. They used a lot of really hard light, and so let's break down a scene in the living room. Okay, so right off the bat, these guys are doing something, they're following a rule called the framework. The framework is a basic cinematography breakdown that a lot of commercial filmmakers use today. Basically, it comes down to 3 things: bringing someone away from the wall of the room, shooting into the corner of the room, and shooting on shadow side. It means pointing the camera to the point where the shadow is hitting the face. So as we can see, there is the corner of the room. She's probably about 10 feet away, and the camera is set up so that we see the shadow facing towards us. Just based off this shot right here, I'd imagine that they had a pretty big studio light around here in the scene, and obviously there's natural light coming in from the back of this window to give her a little outline, so she looks separated from the background. As we get into a little bit more conversation and it widens out, we're gonna see the same effect when this guy stands up. Maybe not to the same extreme, but again, here we go. set in the corner of the room. We can see that line in the middle of his face where they are shooting shadow side. The light's obviously coming from this direction, from that window that we saw before. And again, we can see a nice little shadows being created on his cheek. So those three rules, the framework, it usually just helps the image to look nice and pleasing. There's a lot of things that are going on that even I don't really realize that help the image look pleasing to us. Again, just another great shot. It looks like the cinematographer has kind of chosen this black line as their corner. Again, they got a big backlight. Right behind her is that natural window. And again, we've got the line kind of going down her face to film on that shadow side. As we go throughout this entire movie, we can kind of see this rule of the framework used in most scenes. I think it's pretty prevalent in the police station as well if we go in there. This wide shot's a good example.
Gaslight 1944 remains to be the most well-known rendition of the film, despite it being a remake of the 1940 British film, which was a remake of the play by Patrick Hamilton. The film falls under the American film noir genre, as well as many other genres, which was very popular during the early 1940s. The movie was released in the middle of World War II, where audiences were largely female due to men being off at war. Aspects of the film are clearly designed to resonate with what these women would have been going through at the time. The film had 7 nominations and 6 wins in 1945. Some wins include Best Actress in a Leading Role for Ingrid Bergman and Best Art Interior Decoration in Black and White. The National Film Board awarded Gaslight the 2019 winner of the National Film Registry and was the online winner in the 2017 Online Film and Television Association Hall of Fame. The film's greatest legacy comes from the way it's changed the definition of the word gaslighting. The verb gaslighting was Merriam-Webster's word of the year in 2022, but before the film gave the word a new definition, a gaslight was just a type of lamp where a mantle is heated by a jet of burning gas. In the film, Gregory convinces Paula that she's going crazy, and one of the ways that he does this is by turning on the lights in other parts of the house, causing the gaslight to burn lower, and then convincing her that she's imagining it.
If I could only get inside that brain of yours and understand what makes you do these crazy, twisted things.
Gregory, are you trying to tell me I'm insane?
Gaslight is not used as a verb in the film a single time. The definition of gaslight, according to Merriam-Webster, is the psychological manipulation of a person, usually over an extended period of time, that causes the victim to question the validity of their own thoughts, perception of reality, or memories. While this definition of the verb wasn't published in the Oxford Dictionary until December of 2004, Merriam-Webster indicates that the word was used in the context of manipulation as early as 1956, which is an entire 11 years after the film's release. The first officially known use of the term was in 1961 in the works of A.S.C. Wallace, who wrote, "It is also popularly believed to be possible to gaslight a perfectly healthy person into psychosis by interpreting his own behavior to him as symptomatic of serious mental illness." The verb was still an obscure term not used too often until it gained popularity in the mid-2010s, where it gained praise as the most useful new word in 2016 by the American Dialect Society. Despite its recent popularity, gaslight is a slang word dating all the way back to 1940, and the film's legacy is largely their success, intentional or not, in adding a new definition to a long-standing word. Today, the word is used more as a verb to describe manipulation than it is to describe a type of lamp. Gaslight isn't watched as much today, but almost everyone knows what it means to gaslight somebody. Using gaslights in homes for light is nearly extinct now, meaning that the verb gaslighting is the most commonly used version of the word now, which directly comes from the popularity of the 1944 MGM film Gaslight.